Hey guys, how's it going? TechSpecs here, hope you're all doing well. So, it's been around 9 months since the iPhone 12 series launched, and having used the regular 12 for myself over the last month or so, I've been blown away with how amazing this thing is, even though I'm late to the party. But anyway, that's why in today's video I'm going to be telling you why it is, in fact, the iPhone for everybody. Let's go. Okay, so let's start off with the highlighting feature of the iPhone 12, the new form factor and design. The iPhone 12 has a 6.1 inch screen size, and combined with the new squared off edges reminiscent of the older iPhone 4 and 5, it feels great to hold in the hand. If you use it caseless, as I had to for a while, that industrially cut aluminium edge lets you grip it real good, albeit sometimes digging into your palm. But even with a case on, it still retains the same sharp feel, which I for one am all here for. The boxier design can sometimes actually make the 12 feel bigger than the older iPhones that have the rounded sides, but I don't think it's ever felt too big. In 2021, I would say that 6.1 inches is probably the perfect size for the majority of people. It's not too big, but it's also not too small either. On the front side, you have what Apple calls a Super Retina XDR display, which is quite a mouthful, so to summarize what that means, the display looks amazing. The iPhone 12 steps up to a 1080p display instead of a 720p one that was on the previous generation iPhone 11, and since it's now an OLED panel, you get them deep dark blacks and vivid colours, all whilst having everything look sharper and crispier. Unfortunately, there is no 120Hz high refresh rate like there is on many other Android devices, but iOS has already got such smooth animations that it doesn't feel too noticeable, especially if you're already used to standard 60Hz on everything else. The display has a max brightness of 625 nits, which is perfectly fine for viewing in most situations, but for HDR content in particular, it can additionally bump all the way up to 1200 nits, so you can get a super bright viewing experience. I'll get into actually recording your own HDR video later on when we talk about the cameras, but when viewing HDR content on the iPhone 12's display, it's like being given a new pair of eyes. You can't quite go back after you've seen it. I do know that all the iPhone 12 reviews go on about HDR and it being so great but not fully supported everywhere yet, so it's a kind of niche feature, but there's not really a way to explain how good HDR is going to be if you haven't tried it for yourself. Whenever you next have the chance to go to an Apple store or try someone else's iPhone 12, I definitely recommend you look at some HDR content because you'll definitely be blown away. Of course, you do still have the same old notch at the top of the display for Face ID and all the other sensors, and you also have the same 12 megapixel front-facing camera, which is still fairly decent, so here's a quick look. Okay, this is a test of the front-facing camera and the built-in microphones of the iPhone 12. As you should be able to tell, they're pretty great. The camera can record in 4K 60fps if you wanted to, and yeah, highlights are good, detail is good, and they should be great for taking selfies and FaceTime calls. On the rear, you have the same dual mitosis looking camera layout from the iPhone 11, and it consists of two 12 megapixel sensors, one standard wide lens and one ultra wide lens. The main lens produces some amazingly sharp and vibrant photos with great contrast and dynamic range. Here are a few of them that I've taken. With close-up shots, you can get some decent natural bokeh too, even without portrait mode being on. Of course, you can still use the dedicated portrait mode if you prefer, and whilst it isn't absolutely perfect, it works well enough to get a more refined blur effect whenever you need it, and is more flexible as then you can adjust it after you've taken the photo. Shots in low light are also not too bad either. Night mode with the main lens can help you get some decent photos in the dark, but I will say that you sometimes get less detail and a lot more noise than you would in standard daylight. And overall the results can be somewhat blurry if you don't keep the camera too still, as ultimately it's just a long exposure shot. As for the ultra-wide lens, it's pretty useful for getting a large subject into a shot without having to blindly step backwards, and although the quality can be ever so slightly worse than the main lens, it's not noticeable enough to say, oh, it's a bad shot because you took it on the ultra-wide or anything like that. However, the detail can be a little bit more muddy in lower light situations, and there is also a sort of fisheye lens effect that can be fun to play around with. But overall, the ultra-wide just tends to be okay compared to the wow of the main lens. But don't get me wrong, it definitely is a useful lens to have, and is fairly consistent in terms of matching color and dynamic range to the main lens whenever you need to use it, so hey, I'm not complaining. Apple did a good job here. Next up, video. Both the lenses on the iPhone 12 can shoot up to 4K 60fps, and in my testing, video quality is exceptional. As you can tell, I'm obviously using the iPhone 12 right now to record this video, and I will be going forward, so let me know down below in the comments how the video quality is. Hopefully it should be a lot better. But generally when walking outside and taking normal day-to-day videos, stabilization is smooth, detail is crispy, and colors are really true to real life. With the addition of Dolby Vision when shooting video across the 12 lineup, HDR videos make the display hit that 1200 nits super brightness that I briefly mentioned earlier. And although some things can end up a little overexposed, most of the time the result is a beautiful shot, like this one of me walking under the trees, which is probably the best video I've ever taken. Now, is Dolby Vision HDR something that the average person is going to care about or even know about? Probably not, but regardless, all that it means is that 9 times out of 10, whatever video that you shoot on the iPhone 12 is going to come out decent and is probably going to be better than any other smartphone out there. But what about the one time that video doesn't come out good? A complaint that I have with video as well as photos is that sometimes there is lens flaring whenever you shoot it towards a bright light source. I know this is normal with most cameras, but it is very obvious on the iPhone 12 and supposedly has been across the whole iPhone 12 lineup. According to Apple's forums, the best thing to do is just slightly angle the camera away from the light source to avoid the flare in the first place, and although it doesn't ruin the shot per se, often giving a cool effect to whatever you're shooting, it can be a mild inconvenience if you didn't intend for it to be there, as you can't remove it afterwards once you're editing the photo. And another thing that is specific just to the iPhone 12 though, is that the zoom is sort of limited as well. Of course, you have the ultra-wide lens to zoom outwards, but with video you can only go inwards as far as 3 times the main lens, and that's just cropping digitally, so it ends up being pixelated by the time you go the full way in. When taking photos it's a little higher at 5 times zoom, but I think that unless you really need the further 10 times zoom that you can get on the more expensive iPhone 12 Pro, then you won't notice that limitation much on a day-to-day basis, as I find it's much more useful to have an ultra-wide lens for zooming outwards than it is to have a telephoto lens for zooming inwards. So, now that the camera is out of the way, let's talk about performance and battery. I personally came from a 3-year-old iPhone X which had an 82% max capacity, so for me, battery life on the 12 is really good. I consider myself a medium heavy user, someone who has 3 to 4 hours of daily screen on time solely on my phone, and the iPhone 12 can easily last me a full day and a half with my usage. If you use it non-stop doing heavier tasks like filming 4K video constantly all day long, then yeah, of course you can kill it. But for the average person who's just going to browse social media, listen to music, take the odd photo here and there, it will definitely last you at least a day. And going forward over the next couple years, I'm sure that the 3687 mAh battery will remain decent enough. And hand in hand with that good battery life also comes speedy performance. Now with Apple's reputation of iPhone performance, it's obvious that the A14 processor inside is blazing fast no matter what you throw at it, and it handles everything like a champ. From video, photos, opening and closing apps, gaming, it's all smooth, no stutter or anything of that sort, and combined with the pretty loud dual speaker setup, media consumption is truly perfect on this device. And with iOS 15 coming soon, it will no doubt be able to handle all of the new features like live text or AR directions in maps just as well, and like all Apple devices, I'm sure it will have a long lifetime with good performance as the years go on. And so that brings us to the conclusion. Is this the iPhone for everybody? In my opinion, definitely. Whilst you can get the previous iPhone 11 at a slightly lower price, and the next iPhone 13 or whatever they choose to call it is coming just around the corner in a couple more months, right now, as of this moment in 2021, in July, I think that it is all round the best choice for anyone who wants an iOS device. The design and form factor is perfect for most people's hands and looks incredible. The display is of exceptional quality, the cameras shoot amazing photo and HDR video, and the performance and battery make it run so smoothly throughout the day, no matter what you're doing. On top of all that, whilst it is a little expensive at $799 for the 64GB base model, for how much you're getting and how long it will last you, there is no doubt that it justifies its price tag. All of these features combined results in an overall perfect iPhone for both casual users and professionals alike, who want to do anything from just stay in contact to film entire YouTube videos in Dolby Vision HDR. And that is why I say that the iPhone 12 is the iPhone for everybody. And that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up down below, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing as it would really help the channel out. This is TechSpecs here, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.